And hello everyone, and welcome to the third series of Clutter Talk with the theme Thinking Global, Acting Local. So we want everybody to get your thinking caps on about how we're connected to the world and to the stuff, and we've got some wonderful speakers lined up for everybody. So very excited. Our last episode was the Christmas one where everyone was like dressed up and we had all the guests on. So this one we have 6 episodes and we hope you enjoy all of them. So I'd like to get our other presenters in. So we've got Clara of Joy of Space and Elaine McKinley of Clear Mountain. We're all declutterers based in Glasgow, all members of the Association of Professional Declutterers and Organisers. And there's Elaine. Hello, Elaine. How are you, Elaine?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm all right. What's been going on?
Oh, well, we're still in lockdown. We're still in lockdown here in Glasgow. But we're just muddling through. Yeah.
Yeah, and here's
Hey,
Clara.
Hi.
How are you doing, my love?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, you've got a change of background.
Yeah, I thought I would sit opposite the window because I did some iPad training with the family fund for my kids. And he said, always sit opposite a window because you get the best light then. So I just remembered that. The only thing is I've got a mirror in the background. So I just ran round the room to check that there was nothing lying out from the pets and the kids. Did a quick declutter.
A quick tidy. Well, it looks great. No, I think, works for me. Does it work for you, Elaine?
Yeah, looks good. Yes. You're all soft and nice pinky and nice soft. Yeah, lovely.
So I was just telling the viewers that our last episode was the Christmas party one, which we had all the guests from the second series in, and this series we're thinking about Thinking Global, Acting Local, which I'm really excited by. But yeah, first off, let's Clara, tell us about how you've been sort of thinking global, acting local, and how you've been. What's been going on?
Okay, so we have spent a lot more time at home than we thought we would because the whole of January was just out for us. We had COVID, the whole household. So that was quite difficult. However, we're recovering now. And what I did do, and my children did do, is we thought about what our habits were. And looking at my habits, I realised that although I really like the idea, think global, act local, I wasn't actually following it as much as I could be. For example, my favourite toiletries, deodorants are from America. So I sourced alternatives locally, as in Glasgow or the UK. So I've been thinking about habits that and using local shops rather than supermarkets as much, trying to use local businesses. For example, I found, where did I put it? I found dog soap that the lady makes it organically. She Reiki infuses it, which wasn't an element I was looking for, but it's all natural.
Go with it, just go with it, yeah.
So rather than getting a plastic bottle of dog shampoo, and we go through a lot having got a white dog, this one's called Mucky Paws, and you just lather it up like the hair shampoo bars. So that's what we've been concentrating on because we've been really had to strip back all of our habits and just focus on the essentials. And being at home more, you're just naturally thinking about, how am I living? What am I bringing into my home? How can I do things differently and better?
Can I suggest that that's maybe a new dog owner error, like getting a white dog? You know, I think
you'd have thought getting the white car, I would have realised white dog.
You know, do you have a white carpet? Please tell me you don't have a white carpet.
No, I have a sort of sand coloured carpet. Yeah.
Excellent. And Elaine, what about you?
Well, we've been quite proactive in trying to cut out the amount of plastic that's in the house. You know, like Clara, when you're sitting at home and you're observing more about what you're using and how you're using it, we have taken a conscious decision to, you know, try and eliminate as much as we can. So we have swapped back from, you know, plastic bottles of milk to the local milkman who's delivering the milk. And that was a bit of a trial in itself because of the temperatures here that were down to like -16 and things like that. We would open the door and the milk was right out the milk bottle, you know, with the little bit on top. We're like, whoa, well, this isn't going to work, is it? But anyway, it's all settled down now. And I am consciously getting rid of plastic containers. And for when I make soup, I've got reusable pouches that I can use, friendly, and I can wash them and reuse them again. So things like that. We're hardly using the car at the moment. We're walking everywhere, so we're using our local shops, which is great. And what that has created is a lot friendlier neighborhood that we're living in now, because we're walking, we're seeing the same people, we're having a chat, you know. So yeah, it's been that's the positives, I guess, of us being in this situation. So that's what we've been trying, and we'll try and extend that little, you know, little things now and again, just see how we can take it that little bit further. You can't do everything all at once. So, you know, just one thing once in a while is quite good to change.
And I think that's really good advice. It's like just one little thing, and just little things sort of every now and then to change, and it will go in the right direction. It will make a difference. And you brought up an interesting point there about food, because we had a question in about from a viewer who would like to know how best to organise her food. She's struggling with it at the moment. Doesn't give much details as to sort of why, but maybe you guys have some top tips. And just to tell like all the everyone who's watching this out there, if you're watching us live, which is brilliant, you can ask us any questions in the chat window on YouTube. So please do ask us questions, and we'll try and answer them throughout the show. So welcome. And again, I'm your host, Dr. Zen Moffat, and we have Elaine McKinley of Clear Mountain. Give us a wave, Elaine. And we have Clara Moore of Joy of Space. So back to the question: how do we, or what are good ways to start organising our food in the kitchen? How do we do that, Elaine?
Well,
Clara.
I've got a couple of tips, and then Clara can come in because Clara's got a lot more than me. But I think mainly it is that we look at sensible storage for how we would store our items in the kitchen. So that's a case of looking at the space we've got to store it in, and then looking at the containers that we've got to store it in, and then probably there's the planning and the buying in of the things, so regulating that so that you can store it properly. But Clara had some great tips, so I'll pass it on to her.
Oh, okay. Well, like Elaine had said, it's the space that you've got for your storage, but it's also how you're using your kitchen and how your brain is organised. Perhaps you're someone that if it's out of sight, it's out of mind, and you end up with a lot of spoiled food. So in that case, if you menu plan, even if it's just one meal ahead, and gather the items together for that food, then you're more likely to use that food, and you've got it all in the one place. If you don't have a lot of space in your fridge or your freezer, then not everything needs to go in the fridge or the freezer. So you can store vegetables or fruit or your vegetables in your what would be your fruit bowl, or perhaps you have some plastic drawers or even wicker drawers, or things that you can use to store your vegetable and fruit in the kitchen, that it needn't take up room in your fridge or on your countertops. And if you're someone that needs a visual cue, you could just write on and stick it onto the drawers and stick what is in there, your potatoes, your onions, or if you're arty, you could even do a little sketch. So that's alternative places that you can store. You can use furniture or things that will be helpful for you in the kitchen that you might not necessarily think of using. For example, I have children, we're all at different heights, so I store cutlery and plates lower down and cups so that nobody has to overstretch or reach or put wear and tear on their spine. So it's thinking about where you store things close to purpose as well. If you don't have a lot of space, you can use food bags, or as Elaine helpfully suggested earlier on, the silicone bags, so that you can put soup or pasta sauces, bulk cook, and put soup and pasta sauces, store them in the freezer or store them in the fridge. They don't take up as much space as a plastic or a glass container. That would be some of my initial tips. I don't know if you get any more, Elaine, you want to mention?
No, I think the freezer is a great place, you know, to store things if you have a freezer, and or splitting up, as you say, Clara, what you're making, and then you're only using that amount of stuff at any time. So I think probably that's some good advice there. So let's hope that the viewer can take that on board.
Hope so. And if anyone has any questions, then please do message them in as well. So our guest today is Tilo Flache, who's from Belgium originally, and I'm going to share his website, which is called the Meister, and he's going to launch this program on our focuses on Europe, because he's a proper European. As you'll see in his website, it's translated into several languages. And he also has clients here, but in Germany and in America too. So maybe whilst I share the screen, Elaine and Clara can chat about something, maybe about how, about virtual clients, how that could work, because I know Tilo does that work. So I will share screen and one of you can start chatting.
Okay, so as you know, or maybe you don't know, we are all professional organisers and members of ABTO, the Association of Professional Declutterers and Organisers, as is Tilo, actually. And normally we would be out helping clients within the home, but at the moment we're obviously doing virtual organising. So that means that we are coaching clients or helping people on different platforms, i.e. Zoom, you know, FaceTime, WhatsApp, etc. And I know that I have transformed my business onto online at the moment. And it's a great medium for checking in with people. The only difficulty with that is you can't really see people's body language, and you know, part of our job is going in and actually sitting with people and seeing how they feel and working to the strengths of that person or the emotions of that person. So that's slightly difficult, but it is a great way at the moment to have some coaching while we're in lockdown. So I certainly have 4 clients that I am doing virtual organising with, face-to-face on Zoom, and I also have clients on the phone and email contact. What about you, Clara? How are you doing?
Yeah, I have a couple of clients virtually, and I've been doing some work for an organisation providing videos for their organisation on tips that and small changes, habit changing. So, but I have to say that my work has been totally stripped back because of having COVID, and it's not just COVID, it's long COVID, so it's just the recovery time from it. So I've got my first client of the year on Friday, this Friday. I've not taken on anything other than just keeping just some courtesy calls with clients and check in with them, but that's been my year so far.
So I found his website. I'm not sure what people can see on YouTube, but here we've got Tilo Flache's website, and you can get versions in Dutch, in German, and in French, and in English. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and I think we should have Tilo in with us now. So here we go. Tilo, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me today. And thanks for the grand introduction as well. There was one
yeah, we
mistake.
were talking.
One mistake.
Oh, what?
German and Belgian. So.
German and Belgian.
There we go. So, well, there we go. Did you grow up in Belgium or in Germany?
I grew up in Germany and moved to Belgium when I was in my mid-20s.
So well, actually, Elaine and I were talking. Like, what was it? Where did you grow up in Germany then? And what was it? A small village, or was it? What was your? We're curious. What was your home like? Was it kind of as sort of decluttered as it now, or have you kind of? Or is there something particularly German that you've noticed in how you live? Or
well, I grew up in Stuttgart, which is a medium-sized town. Medium large. Our household was not cluttered, I wouldn't say, but I think that had more to do with the fact that when I grew up, people didn't generally have all that much. So houses were less cluttered to start with. Talking about toys, for example, we didn't have a room full of toys, but just a selection. But yeah, thinking back, my mom had a bit of a thing for books. Well, and handbags, but the book kind of took over at a later stage. But when I was living at home, I didn't feel like there was a lot of stuff. But is that German? I'm not sure.
yeah, well, these are some of the questions, Elaine.
Yeah, do you think, I think that we're probably going to ask the question is, do you think that the sizes of houses in different countries, etc., generate different amounts of items within them? Because I know, living in Scotland, I've lived in Scotland, England, Switzerland, France, where else have I lived? Spain, all these different places, the structure or the room sizes for each place where I lived was slightly different, so we're wondering, and this is something we're going to sort of ask people, if you think that, the actual space, the physical space that we live in determines how much we have in that space. Does that make sense?
It's a good question. And thinking about it, well, coming back to my parents' house, we had a flat with 4 rooms. 2 living rooms and 2 bedrooms, and 1 living room, 2 bedrooms, and 1 bedroom, and for my brother and me, 1 room. And when my brother moved out, that was made into a second sitting room. But yes, the rooms were roomy, but I think that has more to do with the time when the houses were built. And these days, modern houses tend to be smaller for various reasons. For one thing, we have fewer children as a rule. So family sizes are smaller, which seems to indicate that homes need to be smaller as well, but not necessarily to the degree that town planners are building them now. But I think it's an eternal strive for balance between the size that is needed and the size that is available. Maybe in 20 years' time, we find ourselves with families with 5 children again, and then the houses are going to be too small. But you're right, Elaine. There are differences in national buildings. The house I owned in Belgium was different in shape. It's one of those very narrow buildings with 4 meters wide, but it went on for 20 meters deep and had 3 floors. So I basically had 1 ground floor that was 12 meters long and 4 meters wide, and then 4 bedrooms on top, which I didn't need, and an attic, and an extension in the back with the bathroom, and the laundry room, and a garden.
Wow, that's an awful lot to look after. Well, I just think, the bigger the home, the more stuff you have. It just gives me more stuff to do, which is one of my reasons for living in a not a massive place and trying not to have a lot of stuff, because it just gives me more work.
Well, that's the thing. If you have more space, that doesn't necessarily imply you have more stuff. I did.
Yeah.
I had a lot of empty space. And I have downsized ever since. The next place I lived in had 2 bedrooms, and that was 1 too many. And then I rented, And now I live in a 1-bedroom flat that has barely any surface, but the advantage is that I've got a lot of light. I've got lots of windows. I've got a good view, and it's big enough for one person. So I've downsized to a point where I could actually do without my bedroom. I could just have a bedroll and sleep here. But I think it's a mindset.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of space, obviously you have the means to accumulate a lot of stuff, but you don't have to. If you have little space, that doesn't mean you accumulate stuff, as we can probably all attest to. Clients who live in very small accommodation and are up to their necks in stuff. So they don't seem to correspond. I think it's more a kind of a mindset that is independent of the amount of space that you have.
Ah, interesting. Clara, you're nodding in agreement.
Yeah, I'm interested by the observations you made there, Tilo. My sister lived in Munich for 3 or 4 years in the 90s, and I spent time there, and she lived in with families. And I would agree, my experience of Germany was that the spaces weren't minimal, but they weren't cluttered either. But what they were was functional. They were a lot more functional than the spaces that I'd experienced in the UK. And I would say as well, the place I found the most cluttered other than the UK was Australia. And I don't know if it's got something to do with just the vastness of the space that they have in Australia, but whatever size of house, whether it was small or big, whether it was Adelaide or Melbourne or Sydney, the houses were so cluttered. So that's been the space, and that was through older generations. But I agree, having the size of your space doesn't necessarily equate to how much you put in it. And I also agree with you, Zem, that when I look at a beautiful big house, I just think I don't want to live there. I don't want to clean that. I don't want to be responsible for that much space.
Totally. Totally. And it's interesting what you said about, so in 2 weeks' time, we've got Tanya Lewis, who's an eco organiser, and she's calling in from Melbourne, Australia. So I bet she has some points of view as well. And how much of it is cultural, how much is personal psychology. I'm totally with you guys that I think the design of the buildings in the UK, what they don't have is they really struggle with functioning spaces like utility rooms, working corridors. You know, actually it's these transition spaces that I go on to, my clients kind of really struggle, because it's like, when you come in, particularly in Glasgow, when you come in and you're wet and you're muddy, you're just straight in from dirty to clean environment, and there's no transition space or utility room. So I think we've chatted about this before in the show. And so the design of the houses don't allow us to actually function well, which is, Clara, what you were saying. You know, actually people forget that we need to clean, we need to fix things, and in order to do that, you need space to do it. And for some reason, town planners or home designers think that, no, we just arrive and the food is made. We just arrive and we're dressed. We just arrive and we're clean. And it's like, no. Anyway, Tilo raised his hand. Tilo wants to speak.
Observation to make. I think part of the issue in the UK has to do with the fact that a lot of the accommodation has been carved out of larger buildings. So you have a lot of the Victorian buildings that were meant for one family to be used, and then have been separated out into different floors, with the effect that the space on the different floors isn't really meant to be used for everything. So in my case, for example, I'm living on a top floor. So I have the advantage of not having a staircase going up. But what has happened is that they built a bathroom out of that space, which is utterly unfunctional. It has a bathtub that is accessible only by climbing over the tabs, and has a corridor about a hand width wide next to the bathtub, which is too narrow to actually walk past without falling in. And everything is kind of chucked in because it had to fit in. And I find that a lot of my clients live in accommodation that is not made for that. And that thought came up when Clara said about the Munich situation, where it feels functional. I think it feels functional because that was a flat, that was a full flat when it was built, and not one that has been carved out an existing building to fit as many people and families in as possible. I think that's a big difference, because in Germany, most of those old buildings are still being used in the way they were originally built. So do private houses, because a different approach to ownership. When in Germany you buy or build a house, you save for 30 years, which means you're buying a house that's going to be passed down for generations, because you can't easily sell a house. It's usually tailor-made. And then nobody wants exactly that. And people are more in the business of building their houses.
Ah, Elaine, sorry to interrupt you. Elaine, you had something to say.
Yeah, I think Tilo's right. And I also think conversely, I think that now we are seeing, house builders looking at how families want to live in a home. So, the kitchen wall has come down and it's now a space it's a kitchen and dining room and lounge, area that are all in the one space. And I don't know about any of you, but I've gone to families who have had a home like that and said, I just can't cope, because I've got the kids' toys that are in the kitchen, but they're also in the family space, but they're also over there and they're here and whatever. So there's no definition to space. And what I have to say is then maybe we need to look at zoning these areas. It's lovely to be in an area where mum or dad or carer can stand and cook and look at child playing, in front of them safely. That is fantastic. The problem comes when that all encroaches into the kitchen or into the next space or whatever, and there's just no getting away from it. Because I think you might agree that, if we go into families and the person's saying, there's just toys everywhere. I've definitely gone into houses where there's toys in every single room. And I've had to say, look, it's time to zone.
So that's a really interesting idea, Elaine, zoning. Maybe you could sort of explain it a bit better. For me, it means sort of having things, like Clara says, close to purpose. So the toothbrush principle. So you have your toothbrush on the sink next to in a wee toothbrush pot or whatever with the toothpaste, and it's all there. It's in its zone. And you go into a kitchen sometimes, and there's the kettle in one place and the cups in another, and the tea bags in another, and the milk, and you're having to sort of do a wee dance around the kitchen in order to make a cup of tea. And kind of like Clara, I like to minimise the amount of energy I spend doing anything. So if everything is close to purpose, then that actually means that I expend less energy making a cup of tea and can have more time to enjoy it. But Elaine, is that what you're talking about when you talk about zoning, something like that?
Yeah, and and there's always this other thing of the more space you have, there is the argument that there's more space so you can fill it with more things, and I've talked to you before about my friends who live in Switzerland, and she brought up 3 boys in a tiny flat within a big chalet, and that place was never untidy. Not one time did I ever go in and it was untidy. Everything had a place, and the children were taught to take the stuff back and put it away, because you physically couldn't live if there was stuff lying all over the place. So yes, zoning is like with like, where if the book corner is where you sit and read with your children, in the daytime, then that's where you would put your bookshelves, and they stay there, and the kids then realize that, after they've read a book, they would put it back in that area. Or, you've used the analogy of the kitchen, the cups are beside the kettle. We do that often with people, the tea bags are there, the sugar's there. It's all within this area. So zoning is quite an important part of our job, I think. And it saves less energy, and especially for people who maybe are struggling with physical difficulties moving around their home.
So are we saying that what we're thinking is, it's not necessarily the amount of space you have, but it's about how you think about it. It's more your sort of attitude to it, whether you want to fill it or not. Do you think there's a minimum amount of space that people need? Like, I think there is also, for example, with what we need to do, we talked about house design and stuff. And if you don't actually have the space to take your muddy boots off, then or to store them, then you're kind of scuppered. So do you think there's kind of a minimal amount, then after that it's sort of free play?
I think it varies between people, but I was just going to follow on from the great points that Elaine made, that I think if you have a 10-minute tidy up, and that's for adults, that's for children, and you tailor that to your own life. For example, my house would just be strewn with the kids' detritus rather. It would be, but we have a 10-minute tidy up where they take things back to their room, or they put things back where they go, and then they've got more leeway once it's actually in their room for when they're going to tidy that. And my son, for example, on the way out doors for a walk, he'll take down recycling, food recycling, the bin. So we tag our habits onto what we're already doing, and then I think it's easier to see with a clearer head how much is right for you in your home, how many belongings are right for you. Once you've got the scaffolding in place to keep your house a bit more organized, then your brain can be a bit clearer. You've got less like air traffic control going overhead, less overwhelm. I had a client who described it as if she had too many things going on and too many decisions that she hadn't followed through on, then it was like planes, aircraft traffic control getting out of control, and she was just immobilized and anxious. So I think if we put the scaffolding in place in our life, that really helps.
I love that. And I love that idea of like tagging things on. So as you go out the door, take the rubbish with you, you know, just sort of add it to something that you're already doing. Do we have any questions, guys? Has anyone questioned in on the YouTube channel or anything? Do we have anything?
I don't see any.
No.
Oh, that's a shame.
I looked at
nothing
before I came in, and I had an error message that something went wrong with the chat.
Yeah.
Maybe
there's as well.
Yeah.
Right, well, guys, I'll look into that. So if you want to message us, then please do it on Facebook or Messenger, and you can get Elaine McKinley or Clara Moore of Joy of Space. I think, is that the best way, Elaine? What do you think, if the chat is not working?
Yeah, if there's anything, yes, Facebook or something like that, Messenger, yeah, probably.
Sorry about that, guys. I remember the first episode we ever had. It was a blooming disaster, I think. I tried to do it on Facebook, the first two. And so anyway, here we go.
Well, we had a disaster earlier on before we came on air.
We did!
Elaine disappeared.
When I went shooting off in a chair that went flying behind. So that was lucky you've not seen that. So that's good. Going back as well, I'm wondering about, culturally, do you think different cultures or different countries hold on to things more than other countries? I'm wondering about that. I don't really know. Do you know? What do you think, Tilo? Do you think that in the countries that you've lived in, people repurpose and recycle more, or?
I'm wondering if that's a national thing at all. Again, I'm drawn back to mindset, and maybe there are societies where the mindset is more geared towards being more austere or more repurposeful or less cluttered. But ultimately, I think it's a personal thing. It's a very, in my experience with clients, and you can probably attest to that, you can not gauge at all by looking at the property what the problems inside are going to be. No. It's always a surprise. It's just the personality of the person I work with. And I would claim that is not based on nationality. Maybe the kind of items people hold on to is different, but I don't think there's a distinction in a national distinction in the amount or the sort of things. Just thinking of Sweden, to me, and Scandinavia tends to be a bit more streamlined, but I think that has more to do with the fact that they might be better organized, or they're having things that are more purposeful. But ultimately, I know for a fact that there are Scandinavian people who are cluttered.
Yeah.
And there's Italian people who are not. So, and I'm not saying that all the others are, but the general sense feels to me more like it's about the personal approach. And just look at your clients. Very often you have a couple and they're very different in their approach. One of them can't find anything in their home because they don't know where they left it, and the other one is perfectly organized. So I don't think it's national. It's and please ask.
What do you think about like the infrastructure that, you know, babies there? We're thinking there, talking there of Sweden, and I've got a son who's living in Sweden, and I've lived a little bit in Sweden, and also, you know, that the infrastructure's there for recycling, and, you know, a better infrastructure than we have at the moment, although we're heading in the right direction. So I'm wondering if maybe that has an influence. I don't know what anybody else thinks. What do you think, Zem? Do you think that has an influence on things?
Yeah, I think infrastructure is very important, because if you like where I live in Glasgow, we've got a very good shop down the road where you can go and top up your milk. You take your milk bottle along and you top it up. So where I am, I can get milk, refill it, and I don't have loads of plastic milk cartons. And that just has a very immediate effect on the amount of waste that I collect in my house and what I need to do with it. Also, you know, Glasgow Council is not the best at the moment at sort of recycling or clearing up the streets around us. So, and that actually, that has a mental effect. Like, people do find it very depressing to go out onto the road and there's rubbish on the road. So I think these civic structures are incredibly important. And when Zero Waste Scotland introduced a sort of a charge for the plastic bag, because we used to get plastic bags for free, I sent them a thank you letter, because I said, you know, you have reduced the amount of work because no longer are my clients sort of gathering all these plastic bags, because they're now mindful and they're taking it along. So I think, yes, civic structures and how it can have a massive impact, a very immediate effect on how we operate in our homes. And in the UK, we don't, when our water isn't metered. So I noticed the amount, actually, how free we are with the water that comes out of our taps. Whereas in other countries, and I've spent time in places like in Tanzania and other places where you have to carry the water in some parts of these countries. And it's very precious. You know, it's a very precious commodity. So I think what the country can offer has a massive effect. But and I think that's the whole point about this show, is this series, Thinking Global, Acting Local. Like, how much is national, how much is local, how much is personal. And, you know, as has been coming out, you know, there are people in every country, some with clutter issues and some without clutter issues. And I'm just really excited by the lineup of speakers that I've tempted to come onto the show, basically promising them a good time. So I hope we can show everybody that. But I'm going to flick through a couple of their websites. So first off, next Wednesday, we have Kathy Nelson. So she's from Connecticut on the east coast of America, of US of A. And she specializes in photo organizing. And so she also published this book, Photo Organizing Made Easy. And I remember, Elaine, you and I met up with her, didn't we, in a lovely restaurant in Paisley in Glasgow, Italian, I think. Can't remember what he ate, which is unusual. But and she was saying that in her work, they will organise photos. That they will charge by weight. So it's how many photos, the weight of photos, not the number, because people have so many. And if we think that was kind of an era from physical printing, where we went into physical abundance, and now we've got digital abundance. So is it the same? Is it still just about how you think about it? But what is the materiality? How does that work? So we're going across the Atlantic she's coming across to us next Wednesday. And so it'd be interesting to hear her thoughts. Then the following week, we've got Tanya Lewis, who is a motivational speaker and waste coach. And she's really interested in resource use and how we reuse resources. So it'll be interesting to find out her perspective from Australia. So she comes from Melbourne. So and bless her, she's coming in at something like 2 a.m. in the morning her time. So I promised her some coffee, which maybe I shouldn't send her. Maybe I should find a local producer out there. And then the following week, we're going around the world again to Mexico. So we have Nacho Eguiarte, and I think that's how I pronounce it. So I'm taking lessons. And he comes from somewhere on the west coast of Mexico, and he specialises in kind of chronic disorganization. And as you can see from the website I've just pulled up, he knows a lot about the kind of Mexican organizing industry. So really excited to have him on board as well. And also to kind of fly the flag for men. It's right, Tilo, isn't it? Because the decluttering industry is, there's a lot of women. There's a lot of women in it. And I don't know why that is. We could have an episode on the gender question, but maybe not this one.
Well, we did last season.
Yeah, we talked about that.
We did cover it. Oh, yes, we did, didn't we? Yeah. With the UK association, was it Catherine Blacker? Who was it that came on? Yeah, that's right. And she told us about the statistics. So, yeah, I'm just turning my fire off. I'm a bit hot. Yeah. So, that's enough of me rambling. Clara, say something sensible.
I was just going to say about acting locally. If you want to do something locally, for example, our local area, normally once or twice a year, people would volunteer and gather together with the, what you call those, the easy grabbers or the helping hands with a black bag, and we'd go around the local area and clear up clutter. Now that's obviously not been happening because of lockdown restrictions, but what my children and I have been doing is, with gloves on and with bags, been doing a bit of that ourselves. And in the park, when we are with the dog, I just have a couple of carrier bags in my rucksack, and unfortunately, people have been using beautiful woodland area as drinking areas, and leaving all their bottles and cans and rubbish and plastic. So we've been clearing that up, and it's quite nice when other people see you doing that. They're saying, well, thanks so much for doing that. That's really good. And like Elaine was saying earlier on, it is nice to get out and connect with other people in a socially distanced way. So there are still ways that you can act locally and do something for your own environment, your local area, if you want to.
On that note, Clara, I noticed there was some posts this week from Rags to Riches, they were picking up broken sledges because obviously we've had a lot of snow here in Scotland. Actually, it's just really gone this week. We've been sort of snowed in, and there's lots of kids been out sledging and obviously broken the sledge. But Rags to Riches are going around and picking up the broken parts of the sledges, and obviously they're going to repurpose them or recycle whatever it is that they're doing. So, remember, actually, if you're out there and you see things like that, to give maybe even these places a call to say there's a pile of sledges or something there that you guys might want to use, and I'm sure they would be happy to go in and get them. But
yeah, now Rags to Riches are one of our favourites, aren't they, Elaine?
Yeah, yeah.
And we've had Blanche on before talking about their work. So I'm just going to grab their website again. Explain a little bit, Elaine, about Rags to Riches for people.
So Rags to Riches, we sort of joined forces with Rags to Riches because they had there's sort of recycling projects or repurposing projects, I think, that they do lots of different things, and they bring in lots of different people who have got fantastic skills in repurposing items or materials, I think. And they had a shop, and we would go on a Saturday once a month and sit at the back of the shop. And if anybody had any questions that they wanted to ask us about any of their decluttering or organising difficulties, we would answer the questions. So Clara, Zem, myself and Kate Galbali of Better Organised, we would sit at the back of the shop, and if anybody had a question, they would come in. And it's a fantastic, is it a charity, Zem? I'm not sure, is it a charity?
Yeah, I think it's a social enterprise, yeah.
It's a social enterprise, yeah. But lots of different, they were running, obviously, lots of different workshops that people could join in, and hopefully we will get back to doing that again. But yeah, really worthwhile checking out their sites, because I think they maybe have links to people who are producing things and you may be able to buy them.
Yeah, and I really like Rags to Riches because they're very much, because Govan Hill in Glasgow has people living in it from all around the world. It's one of the biggest sort of migrant communities in Scotland. And Rags to Riches really connects with all these different cultures and ways of making things. And it's just, that's what I love. Unfortunately, we did invite Blanche back onto the show, but she's so busy with all the workshops and everything that she can't come on. But she says hello. But I just love the idea and everything that they stand for. And I think I'd like at this point in the show just to say sort of thank you to everybody who's doing so much in their local area, and who is kind of doing their bit to kind of bring joy and a bit of lightness, and to spread the advice and the love in sort of what's going on in the world. And for the viewers that know, this site, Clutter Chat, is actually fueled by Glasgow-based or Scotland-founded the Clutter Chat charity. And the Clutter Chat charity seeks the relief of people who suffer from too much clutter, really, offering support and advice and assistance, and to raise awareness. So this is really what our show Clutter Talk is about as well, just sort of spreading bit of free advice, bit of knowledge, and to taking questions and to figure out how we can help in our little way people to get on in their homes. So I mean, I know Clara, Elaine and I all really enjoy it as well, just as a sort of time to sort of catch up with each other, don't we, ladies?
Yeah.
We're missing our coffees and social contact. I think we're missing our coffees and social contact.
Hey!
And on that note, people call us the dream team, because we bring different skills together. And when we put on our courses at the University of Strathclyde, and actually we're developing courses, possibly developing courses with the Glasgow College, and collaborating with other charities. We are quite a formidable team. We are quite crazy, but we're good.
Yeah.
Well, looking forward, I mean, it's a very odd time with, I mean, I'm feeling that in the UK, the time is sort of, it's sort of slow, like where they're trying to sort of release the lockdown, I think, as sort of slowly as possible at the moment, and steadying it. So I was thinking the other day about how that means that I can think forward, like how far ahead I can think forward in terms of planning and how important it is. So in terms of time and planning, I mean, Tilo, that's one of your sort of big things, but how do we mentally plan our time at the moment?
Good question. I don't personally. My thinking at this point is following my basic mantra. It is what it is. I'm easing into doing things if and when they become available. So I'm not really planning ahead. I'm not planning any vacations, for one thing. And I think that plays a bit into our theme today, this thinking global, acting local. Anything, this lockdown has made us rethink how much we can do on a very local level. And at the same time, anything that is more distant, more global, has moved online. And speaking for myself, I hope that it stays that way to some degree, because I feel there is not necessarily all that much need to go far away. Most of what we need is really nearby. But coming back to that planning thing, I try to plan ahead, but in a way that allows me to change plans as needed. So it kind of flows out of my approach to holidays in general. When I plan a holiday, I write up things that I might want to do, but I don't plan them in at a given time. I basically collect options, and when I feel like I want to do them, or the opportunity presents itself, then I take that action. And I kind of bring that to my forward planning right now as well. I can't plan anything. For one thing, we don't know when lockdown stops. I haven't been vaccinated. I had COVID last year, but I'm in no mind to go anywhere into anybody's home until 99.9% of the population has been vaccinated. I'm not going to take that risk, not necessarily for me, but I don't want to be the person who infects someone else. So that's one thing. But my planning is very short term and very flexible. So I stay away from things that lock me down at a particular time or for a particular action. And that has served me well so far.
Clara, how have you been able to plan? And Elaine, what's been your strategies?
My strategy has been to really just focus on the essentials, and my creativity and extra energy has gone into things like managing our household budget, putting routines in place that support the children and myself and my family members, friendships, albeit in a distanced way from friends and family at the moment. So my strategy is a bit like Tilo's in that nothing is locked in a fixed way, that there is a skeleton of what might happen, but that's adapted day by day, depending on what energy I have, what's going on in my life, the children's life, other people's lives. So yeah, I would say it's very flexible. I am looking at self-care and what is realistic. What I would love to do is just not going to happen at the moment. I'm not able to just get in the car and go to the beach or go over and visit my mum and have a hug and a cup of coffee. So what other ways can I try and help myself have an element of that? Maybe I can go over and maybe I can do shopping for my mum and go over and drop at her house with a face mask on, and we can smile at each other, her from her front door, me from the end of the garden path outside the gate. Maybe we can share a joke. So it's flexible. What about you, Elaine?
Yeah, I think as a motivational coach, I think a lot of people come across it difficult to change, and don't like the thought of change, changing direction very quickly. But what I've had to do is sit with people and say, at the moment, this is something that we need to be able to be okay with. I think that I always used the analogy of a tree growing up. So the tree is growing, but the branches go out from that tree. So in fact, we are the branches that go out. So, sometimes we're going in a straight line and then all of a sudden we just have to go off for a wee bit, and and people seem to like sort of thinking that way, but feel they're under pressure when it comes to change. Oh, I don't think I can change. I don't think I want to plan ahead. I want to think ahead. And I've had to say, well, as we know from the television, things are changing like that every day. We think we're going to come out of lockdown, then we're not. Then we're disappointed. So what I say is, and this is using mindfulness, and we're going to talk maybe about that in a few minutes, but being in the present moment and sticking with the present moment. And as Clara and Tilo said, just going with the flow. Whatever happens is going to happen then. And let's not worry too far ahead, and let's not think too far back about what's happened. Let's try and be in this present moment, and deal with that.
Mm-hmm. We have about 5 minutes left of the show. Tilo has a question for us, and then just to let the viewers know, we have a wee task for everybody called the Power of 5, and then we're going to end on a small mindfulness moment. But before you ask your question, I'll let you ask your question. Is it a quick yes/no answer? Go on then.
Yeah. After what I heard from all of you, my question is, do you feel that after a long period of lockdown and changing that approach to feeling less structured and long-term planned ahead, do you feel like you are more free than before, when our agenda determined our life for weeks and months ahead? I'm wondering if that is something to take away from this with us, to stay less locked in and a bit more flexible. But I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Good question.
I think it's a difficult time for people who maybe like a structure and really like, the people working from home who love a structure of, they know where they are and what they're doing and when they're doing it. And then at home, that's not there. So it's been difficult for people. I was talking to a life coach, actually. I went on a psychology course with her just last week. And she was saying that. She says she has a lot of clients who have come to her and said, I can't deal with this, not having a structure in my life. And she said, I am sitting, coaching them through, we need to let go of that. We need to adapt with the times. So.
Oh, go on, Clara.
Sorry, I was just going to say, for me personally, the sense of personal freedom and liberty to connect with my loved ones, to connect with my friends, to connect with clients is everything, and to be able to just go to the beach. So for me, I think the answer to your question is no.
Okay.
For me, I quite like, I think it's like, I quite like having empty space. I quite like the unexpected. Like, I don't quite know what's going to happen, but I think that's because I kind of almost miss a sort of a fear factor in my head, which I think is very helpful for many people. And so I kind of always have kind of enjoyed that sort of spirit of adventure. So, and I trust that I'll be okay. So I quite enjoy this sort of the openness, and I like testing myself. Am I resilient? Can I react? Can I survive? So for me, it's also a little bit of a game. So yeah, I think when I started decluttering, I was like, how few pairs of trousers can I actually live with? Let's try this. I decided that 2 was too few. So I got the answer. I did get the answer. But yeah, well, thank you. I'm going to show people quickly before we let Elena talk the Clutter Chat website. So for those of you, if you have any questions, we've got resources on there. We also have a support group that you can now join on Zoom, which is a kind of a weekly support group. And also, it's a charity, and it's supporting this YouTube channel here as well. So if you've benefited from any of the advice that we've given out sort of now or over the past couple of years, then please consider, if you put your hand down the back of the settee, there might be a few pennies stuffed in there. So we would love to help you declutter the back of your settee from any spare pennies that might be there. So you can find the donate button either on the website or on the YouTube channel, and it would all go towards helping support people who really suffer from clutter. So thank you very much, everybody. And Elaine, can I pass over to you for the power of 5?
Yep. So each week we've decided that each week we're going to do the power of 5. Okay, so the power of 5 might be that we choose 5 things for you to try to do through the week if you want to a little challenge, or it might be you do something for 5 minutes. But we're going to call it the power of 5. So this week it is for where you are sitting. And if you have a look around, if you have 5 things that you think that you can get back to the place where it's supposed to be, rather than where it is at the moment. So we're wanting you to move 5 things back into its original place. Okay, so it's helping you to declutter, but it's also a little bit of motivation that we want to give you, and it's fun as well. So 5 things that when you're sitting in your chair and you're looking around and you say, oops, that should be upstairs or that should be in the kitchen, let's take the challenge and remove those 5 things back to the place where they should be.
Right, we'd like you guys to do that after the show. You can all go and run around and put your stuff. And before we go though, Elaine, would you like to lead us in a wee mindfulness moment? And can we all just say thank you to Tilo for coming on our show, and you're our regular. So thank you very much. Over to you, Elaine.
Thanks, Tilo. Okay, we're just going to finish in a wee 3 minutes of mindfulness. If you'd like to join in, then that's great. If you don't, then we'll see you next week. But if you'd like to sit just now and just take a few breaths in and out slowly, so breathing in and breathing out gently, and breathing in again and breathing out. And you can lower your gaze or you can close your eyes, and we're just going to do a little body scan. So starting at your head, just breathing into your scalp and out, down to your ears and your face. Breathing in, breathing out. Down to your mouth and lowering your jaw and your tongue into the bottom of your mouth. Breathing in and breathing out. Down to the neck, breathing in and breathing out. Down to your shoulders, breathing in, breathing out. Now down your arms, breathing in, breathing out. Over to your chest, breathing in, breathing out. Down to your torso, breathing in, breathing out. Down to your hips and pelvis, breathing in and breathing out. Down your legs, breathing in and breathing out. Down to your foot and toes, breathing in and breathing out. Take some final breaths, breathing in, and slowly let your body just sit into that chair and out. And you can now wriggle your fingers and toes and bring yourself back to the room.